rocking chair. The 84th Psalm says, "How lovely are your dwelling places, O Lord of hosts. My soul longed and even yearned for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God. The bird also has found a house, and the swallow a nest for herself where she may lay her young. How blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. How blessed is the man whose strength is in you, and whose heart are highways to Zion. Passing through the valley, they make it a spring. The early rain also covers it with blessings." This is the psalm that the Lord had given me before we planted the church. And when things got going, I understood why. You know, sometimes it's important to remember where we've been, to remember what we have come through, and what God has done in us, through us, and for us. Because when we remember, it propels us to our future. So I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a pastor that was 200 years old, at least. And if you weren't depressed when you went to church that morning, you were when you left. We just got married, and that was the church we were going to. And we came home one day, and I told him, I said, "You can go back if you want to. I am not going back." So we went to a different church, and it was an awesome church. Aside from Pastor Scott, the most awesome pastor on the planet, Steve Perdue. And the church we were in, things were going good. We went to 2 services. We were looking for land to build. We were the first church in this area that started praise and worship. And the pastor got called away, and it was definitely of God looking back. You have to remember, this was a long time ago. This was a Pentecostal Holiness church. And they're typically behind times anyway. So for a PH church, we were ahead of time. And the pastor they brought in had been on the mission field in Africa for the last 20 years. So he's like way over here. And we're way over here. Now, do you think that meshed? You've heard the stories about my husband having the band, and I remember we were tearing down to go play somewhere. And I was in the sanctuary because at that time we had the old-timey projectors like we used to have over there where we put the words up on the screen. And I was getting the songs out for the next morning, and I'll never forget, I had my head down in the cabinet looking for the songs for the next morning. And the pastor came and he told my husband, he said, "You don't need to worry about bringing that stuff back in here and setting it up. We don't want it back in here." Fine, not a problem. Or we heard, "Oh, you better believe it." He was the worship leader. We took care of the teenagers. We were the co-activities directors. Anything going on in that church, we were there. It's like, God, where are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to do? Where do we go now? What do we do? For some people, it's been so easy just to get mad at God and throw in the towel. We drove to Beckley, seeing that where God wanted us to be. We drove to Blue Well. We went everywhere trying to find where did God want us to be. My husband was out of town on a mission trip, and I went to church with my in-laws one night, and there was a choir that had come to their church. When he got home, I said, "I know where we're going to church Sunday." So we went to that church, and we were there for 3 years. And things were fine. But I felt this release. And I'm telling you all this history because it's so important. How you can't just take for granted and just shrug off and think that your steps are not ordered with God. Because if you're not obedient when he tells you to do this one particular thing, you may miss the step that gets you to the next point that's going to get you to where God wants you.
Amen.
So when God's speaking to you, don't just shrug it off and don't just think that it doesn't matter. Because you don't know that. So the church we were at, we felt this release, but we didn't know what it was all about, where to go. And I can remember praying, the Lord, are we supposed to go to the Church of God? No. Are we supposed to go to First Methodist? No. Every church I prayed about, where are we supposed to go? All I got was a no. But yet I felt this release, and I'm like, God, what's going on? We feel this release, but where are we supposed to go? It's not making sense. And in 1 week's time, out of the blue, my husband received 3 phone calls from 3 different people that were out of the area. They did not know our situation, what was going on. And these people would call and they'd say, hey, have you ever thought about planting a church? No, goodbye. 3 times in 1 week. So on the 3rd phone call, it's like, well, we give in, we know this is what we're supposed to do. How many of y'all ever had the baby's name picked out long before you were even pregnant? We had the church's name picked out long before we even thought we would have a church. You know, just joking around one day, we think, if we ever had a church, we'd call it Cornerstone. I mean, we had the name for years. Never in a million years thinking we would ever really do it. So it started to make sense why we had the release. It's like, okay, now what do we do? We looked for buildings, and at that time there were not a lot of available buildings in Princeton. You go to Bluefield, you find a building on any corner, but in Princeton, you got to remember 18 years ago it wasn't like that. And the buildings you could find, they wanted a fortune for them. So he found the building next door, and it had been a music store. It was founded today. And in commercial banking, you are charged by the square foot when it comes to rent. I told him, I said, if God is in this, I said, you go down there to that bank and you make them a ridiculous offer. I said, if God is in this, we'll know. Now, Sounds of Today had been paying over $3,000 a month. I said, go offer them $500. Pretty ridiculous, huh? So he went and he talked to the bank, and he said, well, we're interested in the building, but all we can give you is $500 a month. And you know what was so sweet? When we had the grand opening of the teen center, one of the men on the stage from City Council, Mr. Litton, he's the one that we worked with at the bank. And he was very kind, he's a gracious man, and he wasn't rude, and he said, well, I'll take it before the board, but I really don't think we're going to be able to take your offer. He's like, well, here's our name and number. If you change your mind, you call. And Mr. Litton took it before the board, and guess what? They took it. The only problem was we didn't have $500. And at that time, that was a big problem. Because when we decided to plant a church, we knew he had to be able to go for it full time. He had a landscaping business and he closed it out, he gave it up. And I didn't have the job at the hospital that I have now. And we didn't have any money. Because we had taken all the money we had and we tried to get out of debt because we knew we would be living just on what I made at the hospital. So Mr. Litton said, here's the deal. I can't give you the keys till the 1st of the month till the 1st of May because of insurance regulations. And we begged him, we said, oh please, can we not have them earlier? We need them, we only have the weekends to work. Can we please have us a little bit earlier than that? He's like, okay, I'll give them to you on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. You bring me the check for $500 and I'll give you the keys. And it was wonderful, but we still didn't have the $500. And this was at a point in our time I was so bad about trying to help God out. And even when we felt the release from the other church, I thought, I'll just start saving my tithes, man. That'll help us when we get started. God said no. You're being fed here now. This is your storehouse until you leave. Your tithe goes here. So, well, God, I'm just trying to help you out. No. So we needed $500. It's Friday, and the next day is Saturday, and we're down to less than 24 hours. So my husband goes to the mailbox. Guess what's in the mailbox? Check. A pastor in Ohio that had heard what we were doing sent us a check. $500. So we come, we get the keys. We're so excited. Our planting team was 13 adults and 5 children. So we get in that building over there. It had been empty for 3-4 years. It was full of trash. There was nothing good left in it. But boy, did they leave trash. And we walked in and had this nasty blue carpet. And there were these posts in the hallway, not in the hallway, in the space there. And those posts drew my husband nuts because they just weren't in a good place to be. I mean, we had to set chairs up around them. We hated those posts and we hated the blue carpets. And we needed chairs, and right before we got started, the last worship conference that he did, he went to the Virginia Beach area, and the church that he was at, they had just gotten some chairs, and he was talking to the pastor about it. He said, well, he told his secretary, he said, go call. It was like a Marriott or some big hotel down there. You know, they all have all the big banquet rooms and stuff. And he said, it's some big hotel that's remodeling, and they're selling these chairs for like $6 a piece. So the secretary called, and they had about 135 of them left. So he took his honorarium that he got from that conference, put the rest on a credit card, and rented a U-Haul, and brought home 135 green chairs. It's those green chairs that you sit in on Wednesday night. Well, we have 135 green chairs, and we have this ugly blue carpet. Now, y'all know me, it's got a match. And okay, what are we going to do? And there are actually people here at this church that have been going here longer than me, and I'm the pastor's wife. The very first Sunday, I wasn't even here. I was with the Mormons. I'd gotten sent to Utah on a hospital trip, so we went to the Mormon Tabernacle to hear the choir. And the Barkers, they beat me to church here. They'd been here longer than me. And we had to go before the city to let them know that we were putting a church in here. And we didn't know the Barkers, but we knew who they were, but we didn't know. And we walk in and we see them there, and we're thinking, oh no, they go to another church and they're here to protest us because they don't want another church here. And that's what we're thinking. But Jackie was just there on some business stuff with his business. And we're thinking, oh no. Of course, that wasn't it at all. They'd been driving by and they kept thinking, man, something's drawn us there. So they finally came that first Sunday, and that first Wednesday actually. And it was over in the lobby, and everybody had shorts on. And they walked in and they're like, what are we doing here? But they liked it and they stayed. So there's people here that have been to church here longer than your pastor's wife. I just wanted you to know that part too. So back to that ugly blue carpet. It was so ugly. It had to go. We had no money. So guess what God did? He sent a flood. He sent about 3 feet of water right down the street. And in the sanctuary, the post, it was up to about 2 feet in the sanctuary. And my boss called me to the hospital, and she said, you need to get to the hospital. I worked in medical records at the time. She said, we got to get the records at the hospital's flooding. It took us over an hour to get to the hospital, having to go down all the side streets. He dropped me off. He said, I better go check the church. He walked in. He said it only been in the building for about 30 seconds and water just started pouring in. So he lifted all the sound equipment and he put it up in the lobby. And because the bank still owned the building, that pretty blue carpet got ruined. I hated that. But because the bank still owned the building, they had to buy us new carpet. We got to pick it out. So we picked out green carpet to go with our green chairs. But we still had those posts that he hated. So you know what God did? God sent an ice storm. It was an ice storm and it was so heavy. We had a contractor come in, and when he popped back the ceiling tiles, the walls, they weren't given in, they were given out. They were pushing out because the weight of the building, it wasn't coming in, it was pushing it out. The contractor said, get everything out of here, it's going to cave in, get everything out of here. I'll be back this evening to check it. We didn't do a thing. He came back about 4 o'clock and he was mad. He said, I told you to get everything out of here. This building's going to cave in. I said, buddy, this building ain't going anywhere. God ain't going to let that happen. But you know what? We did have to have a new roof. And you know what? The bank's still on the building. And when they took the roof off, they got to redo it up in the ceiling. And guess what? Those posts, they went bye-bye. God has been so faithful to us these past 18 years. There are people here that go to church with us that found out about the church through ads that we put in the newspaper that we never put in there because remember, we didn't have any money. We couldn't afford newspaper advertising. When the 40s moved here, they knew they needed to get in church, and so Cindy took an ad in the paper and she put it up, and it was time for them to decide, okay, this is the Sunday we're going to church. She went and she got the ad and she called, and I just happened to be in the office. I am never in that office. And she called. At first I thought she was from England because, oh, there's a beautiful voice. You from England? No, I'm South Africa. So we told her about the church and stuff. But you know what? The only thing was, we never, ever, ever, ever put an ad in the newspaper. And that didn't just happen to the 40s. That happened to Scotty and Darlene Christian as well. They found their church through an ad in the Trading Journal. We never put in there. God will do whatever it takes to get people where He wants them. If that means putting ads in newspapers that people never put in there, that you see. When we started building here, the city fought us and fought us and fought us. When we started with the cinder blocks with the walls, it was a Friday and they came and they pulled our building permit and they said, you can't build anymore. Because in all of our documents there was one page in the architectural blueprints that didn't have a signature. We had to beg them, please let us work till Monday or the walls are going to cave in and we're going to lose everything that we started so far. They fought us, and they fought us, and they fought us. Everything we went to do, it was, you need 10 more of this and 40 more pages of that. And they didn't lay off until Jackie very calmly, very politely said, well, we'll just go get our lawyer and we'll be back. And then all of a sudden things changed. And we figured it out, and the city made us do probably $100,000 worth of stuff that we really didn't need to do. But God was even in that because God supplied it. I just want to thank you for all of the awesome, awesome things that you have done. Helping us get Hannah when you honored us with our 25th anniversary. I want to thank you for that. I want you to know that we're in this together. When we got the building done here, we still lacked the pavement being complete. And we needed about, I don't know, a bunch more money. home, and I'll never forget, it was Saturday morning, it was pouring down rain. And we knew, you could just tell it was one of those heavy, heavy rains. And like he always says, I better get down there and check things. And when he got here, the church was fine, but the old building was taken in water again. The old building flooded again. And we weren't in it then. I mean, nothing was going on. We were already in here. And it flooded. And I remember looking out the window by our refrigerator. I remember looking out into our backyard, and I was not upset at all. And I said, God, what are you up to this time? God, what are you doing this time? And it flooded, and he wasn't going to turn it in on insurance. And y'all know me, I'm like, oh yes you are. We don't get but $1. We pay those premiums every month, and yes, we're turning it in. I don't care if we don't get but $1 out of those people, we're getting that dollar. So he turned the claim in. Guess what we got out of that last flood? $40,000. Guess how much we needed to finish paving the parking lot? $40,000. God turns rain into carpet. He turns ice into drawn posts. And he turns water into pavement. And I'm telling you our history this morning before we look at some pictures, just so you'll remember the things in your life that God's done for you. The things that seem so bleak and so unpleasant, when you allow God to change it into something, He'll turn it into something so beautiful. So that once upon a time story, we're all in this together. And I hope that when it's all said and done, we can look back and say, and they lived happily ever after.
sugar. It's interesting to hear my wife's perspective on all that, because her perspective is from someone who was here going through all that, and my perspective is from someone who was always gone and how God was working on the other end. And just so it was interesting to hear that. My story, that would have been completely different, how all that came down. But I'm not going to take any time. You've heard my story enough, right? You all know I was a rock star. How many knows that part? That's all you need to know. Wow. There is just no way to properly go through 18 years of pictures as busy as this church has been with fellowship events especially, and do justice to anything. Just a spattering of our history. And I just started jotting down the things this week that happen here all the time, and just the things that produce memories, that bond us together, the things that equate to us sharing our life together, where we've built relationships, our best friends. If you've been here very long, your best friends are probably in this church, and just watching through the weddings. If you're here today and you got married in this church, could you stand? Probably most of them are here. I know a lot of them are serving and stuff. We've probably done 60 weddings through the years. Thank you, guys. And out of that, a whole bunch of them met here. I think Dan and Kessie was our first wedding of people who met here, and just Michael and Erica. That's something you brothers have in common. You met your wives at Cornerstone, and I love your all's examples, because you came here separately, but you met each other, you fell in love, you've got married, you've had children, we've dedicated your babies, you're still having children, and it's just so neat to see that, and just the dozens of weddings through the years, and just I can't say dozens of baby dedications, because dozens doesn't do that justice, and that's always come in bunches. And I told someone, I stopped at the nursery to check on the workers a couple months ago, and I said, "Where's all the babies?" They said, "Well, I don't know where the babies are at," because our last batch we had 13 babies within like a 2-month period or something. And I said, "Hold on, you know how it goes at Cornerstone, they come in batches." And within weeks, we had the reports of 7 new pregnancies here at Cornerstone. So right now there's 7 women pregnant here. We're getting ready to restock the nursery, so that's exciting. Had just so many babies born here through 18 years. It's incredible. And just the baptisms, and we've baptized everywhere you can imagine. We love Camp Creek. I wouldn't want to baptize down there today, but we baptize at Camp Creek, and we've just baptized hundreds of people through the years, and at pools all over the place, and we thought we'd seen it all till we did a baptism in Jackie's hot tub, which is a really, really big hot tub. And there was a young man, and it wasn't a regular scheduled time for baptisms. This young man got saved in a Sunday morning service, and he felt like he had to get baptized before he lost it. It's like, "What are you doing tonight? Can you baptize me tonight?" It was in the middle of the winter, and I called Jackie, and I said, "What are you doing tonight?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "Want to get in the hot tub?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Mind if I invite a friend?" It was Bobby, and we dunked him in the hot tub, and we've just dunked people everywhere. Our biggest events, and you saw so many pictures through the years, is our vacation Bible schools, and just incredible vacation Bible schools as they have grown and grown. We've done them. We did 2 of them uptown in the center of town on a couple different years, and just as you see, we've always went all out for the kids, and it has built and built till this past VBS. We had how many kids? 340 what? 354 kids. I'm talking about 354 different kids, not the combination of all 4 nights of VBS. I'm telling you, there were 354 kids at our last vacation Bible school, and so you know how we really get into stuff like that, and we've just watched the kids through those pictures, especially as they have grown up, and I look at families like the Hendricks family, especially. You know, when they came here, Emily was in a car carrier when you guys came walking. Emily, stand up. couldn't fit her in a carrier now, and just watching those girls grow up, and now 2 of them are out of school. Erin's in college, and Erica's already out of college and married, and all of them just little tiny kids when they came out. That zoo picture where Erica's in it, because we've done a lot of great adventures through the years, and that first trip to Natural Bridge Zoo, and just seeing Erica in that picture, and I don't know how old she was in that picture, but she's real tiny, and now she's married and going to be having a child within the next year or so. Listen, let me remind you, about 3 weeks ago, I had already put in the bulletin, we're going to kick the tires and light the fire on this teen center. And what happened that week? We had a fire at the teen center. I told Jason yesterday, I said, Jason, you'll be at the front of the pack at this race today. And he said, I want to. Sure enough, here he comes in right there at the front of the pack, man, coming in. So, when I tell you you're going to have a baby, don't argue. Don't get upset. A lot of those pictures through the years, the harvest parties that we've done, we've always had so much fun with our harvest parties at Halloween and getting dressed up, and the big ones we've done out in the parking lot, the whole community, inviting them in, and we are a picnicking church, aren't we? Boy, I tell you, we are definitely a church that likes to have picnics. And then all just the things that we do, the men's power advances and the women's power advances, and going off to the parks and just renting cabins, and just those are just incredible. They're very, very powerful spiritual times, but mostly they're very relationship-building times. And just the life groups, which right now we are on sabbatical from life groups. They're going to pick them back up. Hopefully, maybe even this fall, we're going to pick the life groups back up. But just the relationships that have birthed through that, and in couples connection, which I hope we're going to pick that back up in the next few weeks, because the marriages are just a priority here at Cornerstone. The marriages on the rock that we've done at Pipestem through the years. We sacrificed that to do Art of Marriage a few weeks ago this year, which was so good. And the Brick Street cafes and all the sweetheart banquets. A lot of those pictures where people are dressed up unusual. Those are the things Sandy puts together and always themes them with a 50s theme or a mafia theme or whatever it may be. We always pick a time in the century, the 40s or the 30s or the 50s, and I got a feeling the 80s is coming up, and I've been waiting on that one for a long time. I still got my big hair. It's just it's hanging in the closet right now. Spandex are gone, so it'll be safe to come. The spandex are gone, and the big hair, you saw that picture of my dad and I, and we had wigs on that. That's my hair. That's how my hair used to look for real, only it was bigger than that, actually. If you can imagine that. The Christmas banquets, and just the water parties, and the back-to-school parties, and the out-of-school parties, and the great adventures that we go to all over the place, to zoos and to pools, and just the pumpkin patch trips. Man, I love every fall going to the pumpkin patch, and the big July 4th celebrations, and the camping trips through the years, and the softball, and the special themed Sundays with Beach Sunday and Team Sunday and Harvest Sunday and Biker Sunday. And now I feel like we're about this close to a new themed Sunday. Can you say Duck Dynasty? We love our specialty Sundays, and the one shot you saw was Hannah and I sitting. We bring bikes into the sanctuary, and we were sitting on Jackie's Harley over there, and Fox News was in here interviewing us, and we've always had great press coverage. We've had unprecedented press coverage through the years here because of the events we do that are very unchurch-like. And all the news is always saying, please call me when something's going on. We love the stuff that you guys are doing down there. And all the other pastors in town, it's like, what, do those people go to your church or something? You guys are always on the news and in the newspaper. Have you noticed how often we got kids and people in the newspaper and on the front page in color? We don't ask for that. It's just they seem to show up, and especially at the teen center. It's like if I was only over there once a month, that's when the press would show up and take pictures. And they'd ask me to pose. It's like, sure, I'll pose for you. And it's awesome. The teen center and all the stuff going on there, the men's breakfast and the ladies' teas and the father-son adventures and the Rays games that we've went and made ourselves a public spectacle at, and just the life and the death and the loss, the grieving together, the sorrowing together. And we haven't lost a lot of people through the years that actually were part of this house because we're more of a young church. But just the precious cargo we've lost with my dad and with Larry, and then the list just continues just down the list, and just people that just, in some situations that were a little bit tragic, and just people dying way too young and leaving children behind, but we experienced those things together. And then just all the stuff with construction and the renovations, the adding on to the sanctuary over there. And it's always been so neat because God He's always been pulling on our faith, and we've never waited until the natural was in place before we stepped out in faith. And I remember, Jackie, when we said we've got to double the size of the sanctuary over there, and we crunched the numbers, and we said it's going to be about a $45,000 project. It ended up being a $53,000 project even back then, because it's the way construction goes. But we were ready because we had $5,000 in the bank. So let's get started. And we just prayed, and we felt like if we build, the money will come, the extra money will come, and it did. And when we walked in that Sunday morning, and it was just done, and it was paid for. And then when we started construction over here, literally God only knew what this place was going to cost, but we had like $150,000 in the bank or something. And we said, let's start building, and we ordered the steel, and the steel was all this big steel you see here. It was like $100,000 and some thousand, and it's just like, well, let's order it and have them drop it off. And we'd already bought the property. We stepped out on faith and bought the property. And there was a big warehouse here, if you remember, Baker Sanitary Supply. And we came over and we propositioned and said, we'd love to have your land and be able to build right beside of us someday. And it was on our 10th anniversary that we stood before the people reading a letter of intent to sell this property to us. And it just... And we didn't know where the money was going to come, and we just said, well, have you thought about owner financing? And well, they checked with a lawyer, and it was going to save them buku tax money through the years if they would owner finance and take that money in increments monthly for 10 years instead of just getting one big lump sum. So they were just very happy, and so they owner finance, and we're this July will be 2 years away from paying off this property, a $500,000 piece of property, and plus interest. That was $630,000, $640,000 interest at all. We agreed if they would owner finance to pay the whole thing, even if we paid it off early. That was part of the agreement. We didn't mind because it's not like the bank was going to give us any money. And then we went and we took the money we had. We got a reasonably small construction loan, and we just started building, and we started laying block. And like my wife said, everything in hell tried to raise its ugly head against us. But we would just pray, and we'd just say, you know what, stay the course. Let's just stay the course. God will provide. And we put ourselves in motion years ago to never do anything that unless God stepped in, it absolutely would fail. We always positioned ourselves for failure in the natural if God would not step in. And God proved himself so faithful. And when we were wanting to build, but it was like, well, what do we need to build a lot bigger than we've got, but we need to fill this place up. And we were more than filling it up. And we were praying about going to 2 services, and I was just convinced it wouldn't work because, let me tell you, we had long services back then. My wife and I had been serving in a primarily black church for several years, and I was administrator and a worship leader there, and we had church, long services. And I'd been doing a lot of missions through the years, and when I was in other countries and doing the crusades, it's just like we had like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-hour church services. And you come back here, and I couldn't get re-augmented, and I didn't think it would work for us. And so I met a pastor down at Highlands in Abington, Virginia, and we went down and spent time with him. And he said, well, why don't you go to 2 services? I just said, well, I just don't think it'll work for us. He said, Scott, that's exactly what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. And we went from like 200 to 1,500 in less than 2 years. He said, that's what I thought. He said, you can do this. So I came back. I met with elders and deacons, said in 30 days, we're going to 2 services. In 30 days gives us time to get a banner made. So we're going to 2 services. We just didn't know how we would make it work with children's ministry. Because we have right now, at any given time, we have 80 active teachers in children's ministry that we rotate around. And we just couldn't understand how we were going to make that happen with 2 services. But everybody was excited. And our first Sunday our first Sunday that we went to 2 services, we had 50 new people there. And God was just proving, if you will step out in faith and do things that you know will fail unless I'm a part of, I'm telling you, I'm going to bless it. And God blessed with the construction here. And just we came in and we knew we had to do most of the work ourselves. And God just brought the talent in, people that knew how to plumb and people that knew how to do electrical work and people that knew how to paint and just do flooring and just all kinds of stuff. And we paid to have the steel hung. We paid to have the block laid. We paid to have the drywall hung. And we paid for the mechanical, the heating and cooling. And everything else we did ourselves. And it was just incredible watching you guys take a vision concept and put some meat on the bones. Incredible. We saw it again with the renovation of the teen center. Just people jumping in there. And we tried because we thought our ace in the hole, let's get a construction loan and we'll pay it off real quick because we're going to sell the old property. Everybody was always wanting to buy it. This is the busiest secondary road in Mercer County. Everybody wanted that piece of property till we put it on the market. And then nobody wanted it. And for 2 years we tried to sell it, and finally we met and we said, you know what? The contract is up, the real estate contract. Let's just take it off the market. Evidently there's some reason we need to hold on to this. But that was our ace in the hole. We would sell that property, pay off our construction loan, and wouldn't have really any debt. But you see, that is kind of a stumbling block to faith, isn't it? And God had plans on the burner that we didn't know about. He knew we would need to move the teen center over here. God's been so good, and we have history. And we used to say, God has brought us together to share a destiny together, to share purpose together, to share a life of ministry together. But through the years, we've learned that that's not the bottom line of what's happening. We're sharing our lives together. And the fact that we're sharing our lives together makes our lives that much better. I said it, I think, on the little story on the back of the bulletin. The last 18 years of my life, and my life has always been good. The last 18 years of my life has clearly been the best part of my life. If you can imagine that, and that's saying something. I'm comparing that to the 80s. Playing in a band, rock and roll, big hair, spandex, feather earrings. There was no time like the 80s, and I'm still telling you, the time here with us as family has been by far the richest part of my life. And while it hasn't always been enjoyable, most of the time it has. And the times that weren't enjoyable, God was using them in ways in your life and my life to bring a richness and a cultivation that we couldn't understand at the time. Some seasons that were kind of tough, kind of hard. Couple seasons I wondered if I wanted to keep doing this. Maybe a couple seasons maybe you thought, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And God blessed us. And so we've celebrated together great victories. We've celebrated great accomplishments and marrying people and birthing babies and baby dedications and great successes with events. We've always been somewhat of a very event-driven church because it pulls people in, and just great successes in so many events through the years. And we've watched as we have intentionally tooled this ministry to reach unchurched families, and specifically more on the young side, because those are the families that don't go to church anymore. And we've intentionally tooled this house to fish and catch young unchurched families. And now at Cornerstone Family Church, there's an active 500 people here, and 60%, I'm not talking about the people that come once every 6 weeks or once every 2 months. There's another 200 of those people. I'm talking about the people who are here enough to be able to say, I'm family there, I'm part of the core there. 60% of those hundreds were unchurched prior to coming to Cornerstone Family Church. And I want you to know, in case you can't appreciate that, that's monumental. That is monumental. God has honored us, and He's blessed us. And it's been enjoyable, and it's been fun, but it's been very hard sometimes, spiritually speaking, because we know we have intentionally preached a message to you that has been a very new message in the Appalachian Mountains. Maybe not in other places, but here. an area where people just assume this is as good as it's ever going to get. People would just assume our area is going to hell in a handbasket. All is lost. Here's what it used to be, but it'll never be that again. People who would see themselves as just old lumps of coal. And people who would clearly see themselves as grasshoppers, as Israel did. And God sent us in here with a message of hope and a message of purpose. A kingdom, sonship-driven message. Reminding people, no, for 2,000 years, here's who you've been. You just didn't know it yet. You are the sons of the living God. You are the head. You are not the tail. Those diamonds that are all over this building everywhere you go, and there was all over that building, they are visible reminders. You are not old lumps of coal. You are diamonds. This church is green because green is the color of worship. It's the color of resting in God, and green pastures and the emerald rainbow around the throne of God in Revelation, where worship of the saints is taking place. And this church was built on worship from day one, and it's wrapped in purple. Big purple stripe. It's awesome, isn't it? It's just trying to remind you, you are wrapped in royalty, baby. This is who you are. You're a diamond, and you're wrapped in royalty. You are not grasshoppers. You are giants. And we've preached a message that grated against our culture big time, still grates against our culture. We've pushed on you to motivate you and inspire you and to convince you that however you're living, that is not the way it has to be. If you choose it, so be it. But we're here to let you know it can be much more than that. And we're here to help you and you help us have life and life abundant. I was reminded this week of the prophetic example out front. Several weeks ago, there was a pair of doves that moved in, and they were hanging around the front of the church. And every time I went out there, they were hanging around and flying and cooing. I love to hear doves coo, and just that beautiful, rich, pinkish peach color of the doves with that gray, and just they're such a beautiful bird. And you know, there was a hawk out there trying to catch him, and I'm out there throwing rocks at the hawk, trying to run the devil away from the Holy Spirit, you know, and like he needs my help. And it's funny because they would fly under the church porch, and they would fly under there when the hawk would be circling. They literally used this place as a place of refuge, and it was a very powerful picture for me. Well, I go out there one day, and I'm going to get the mail, and something just catches my peripheral vision. I look up, and there's a nest built on the light right above the mailbox, and there's this mama dove just sitting there. And she's just sitting there. And my first thought was, like many of your first thoughts when you saw her, is that real? Because she was just like so still. And I would put my finger up there, and hey, how you doing, Mom? And she wouldn't move, man. And they hatched a few days ago, and they've been growing. There was just 2 of them, and I was really, really sad because Wednesday night after church, I went out there to lock the front door, and some kids, either young boys that were here or teenage boys. I know it was boys. No one has to tell me that. I know it was boys. There were pine cones laying everywhere, and they'd been throwing pine cones up at the nest, and they knocked out one of the baby birds, and they either took it home with them or they took it and killed it or something. There was just one baby left. And everything was fine before church. And I was mad, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to get in the pulpit, and I'm going to find out who that was, and they're excommunicated from this church. They're never allowed back here again. I said, if it's a teenager, they're never allowed at the teen center again. I don't know if I've got the power to do that, but I'm going to try it. And I said, and I don't know if it's a young boy here and their family goes here, and it's a great family, I don't know how they're going to receive that their child is no longer welcome here. But I cooled down. Came back the next morning, and the mama is up there with the one baby, and then I went out again, and she was gone. The baby was sitting there, and then I went out, and then it was Thursday evening. I went around to get the mail. I came around the side, and that mama is doing everything in her power trying to push that baby out of the nest. She is pushing on him. She's got her wings up. She is doing everything she can to try to knock this baby. By this time, the baby's as big as she is. And this baby is just dancing all around the edge, and he's got his wings out, and he's squawking and making noise. He is fighting her tooth and toenail because he does not want to get knocked out of that nest. And she's saying, but you can fly, you can fly. And he is obviously not buying into it at all. She is working him. I told her Thursday when I left, I went around there and I had a talk with them both. I said, Mama, I got good news for you and bad news for you, baby. Because at this point, the baby is pooping all over the place. The mailbox is covered, and it's like you can't even walk through this and come into the church at this point. I said, here's the scoop. I'm coming here in the morning, and if you're still in this nest, I'm going to help your mama out. You're coming out of that nest tomorrow, and that nest won't be here at the end of the day Friday, and this poop's going to be gone. I wasn't going to bother until I saw Mama was on a campaign here. And if Mama said it was time, then Pastor Scott's going to agree with Mama. Well, I came Friday morning. I walk around there. I've got the broom. I'm ready to. I've got a stool. I'm going to grab that baby. He's going airborne. And I walk around there. He's gone. It's awesome. So I get the broom and I tear the nest out and I get a bucket of water and I clean up all the poop. And I come walking around here to the side door. And lo and behold, if there isn't fresh bird poop all over right at the entrance where you come, it's like, where did that come from? And I'm standing there, something catches my eye. I look down, and there's that baby dove sitting right there in the landscaping. It's like, what are you doing? And he's just like sitting there, and then he starts running a little bit. I say, you better run, because I'm getting ready to mulch the side of the church here, and you're going to have a new nest of mulch right on top of you. I'm starting to get aggravated at this dove. Because it's like, dude, you can fly. Your mama knows you can fly. I know you can fly. You need to fly. So we start mulching, and this Aaron and some guys stopped by, and I said, see the baby and the mommy sitting right there? Well, the mommy flew off then, and she's still trying to watch out for him. And mamas watch out for the kids way too long sometimes. So I ran the mom off so me and this little bird could have a talk again. So I go over and say, Bird, I'm getting ready to throw mulch right here where you're at. You have two choices. You can fly away or you can get covered in mulch. At this point, I don't even care. So I bring mulch over and the bird kind of sees what's going on. All of a sudden, the bird takes off running across the parking lot. He starts flapping his wings, and guess what happened? He went airborne. He took off and he went around. He flies around the front of the church, and you can just pick it up in the spirit, man. This dude is suddenly just feeling it, man. It's like, dude, you could have done this 3 or 4 days ago. 3 or 4 days ago. Well, as a pastor, I can relate to that scenario because that's our job at Cornerstone, to bring you in and convince you you can fly. Guys, I want to pray before we head to the park, but I want to give me 30 seconds to get real. You don't have to live the way you're living. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been delivered, and it's just you've got huge, huge testimonies. We're going to have a special Sunday coming up this fall where you guys are going to see the testimonies in this house in a way you've never even thought about seeing, and it is going to be powerful. But I suspect there's many here today that is living way below par in how God designed for you to live. You can crawl out of those holes. You can break those addictions. Your marriage can be, yes, much better than what it is. You can have a better family life than what you have. Those things that are haunting you in those deep valleys of hurt and regret and just the things that have happened to you from childhood maybe, you don't have to keep carrying those things. For 2,000 years there's been a plan in place that you could have life and life abundant. That life abundant is expressed through the local church, the body of Christ. This is the place that you come in and you find healing and you find restoration and you find freedom from this stuff. And the world may convince you that's just the way you've got to live. That's your lot in life. I'm telling you, there's a different report. I believe in a God of miracles. And I believe that God has given us power for all life and holiness. And if we can find the faith to tap into that, you're going to find that your years at Cornerstone Family Church are also going to be the best years of your life. We're sharing this thing together. You can choose to come in and just be a spectator. Visit us on Sunday mornings. There's a lot you can get out of a church service on Sunday morning at Cornerstone Family Church. And if that's all you can do and if that's all in your heart to do, I tell you, we'll take it. You're still family and we want you to be here with us. We love you. But if you notice from those pictures, there's been many who've said, that's not enough. And they have tapped in and they have they've served, and they've become part of the bigger picture. And they have built relationships, incredible relationships. You guys are closer to me than my blood family is. I sacrificed my biological family many times to cater to you because that's where my heart is now. And that's how it works in the kingdom of God. I want you to experience that. I want you to experience what I've experienced personally with the relationships of this house. We're going to grow old together. We're going to raise up a new generation that's already in the process of being raised up. And I'm looking forward, Jackie, to the day that I can be here 1 to 2 Sundays a month, because the other times I'm going to be in your motorhome traveling with you. And come in here and watch the next generation up here leading worship, jamming on the guitars, preaching the Word of God. I believe that the future pastors of Cornerstone Family Church will all be raised up out of this house. Future worship leaders, future everything. They're here. They're here. I thank you today for sharing your life with us. Thank you for allowing us to share our life. Thank you for finding the courage to buy into the vision in the ministry here at Cornerstone. Our future is going to be better than our past. I can promise you that. Father, I thank you for this house. I thank you for the camaraderie, the fellowship, the unity, Lord. The fact that many of us don't even know how to separate our lives from each other anymore. Lord, in relationship here with the strength of your Spirit in one another, we have found great healing. We have found great restoration. We found encouragement, and we have found a drive and a passion and a motivation here together, Lord. Our lives are better together than they were apart. And we see that very clearly. And we understand this is divine design. This is how you planned it to be in the body of Christ. That body parts could not live without being attached to other body parts. These people have come here and they've allowed that. They've allowed, Lord, the preaching of your word in ways they've never heard before. Lord, they've allowed you to crash their parties. They've allowed you to pull the rug out from underneath their feet and replace it with true foundations. They've allowed you, Lord, to come in and challenge them and pull them past their comfort zones. They've allowed you, Lord, to become bigger than their fears and their apprehensions. And Lord, from glory to glory, you are changing them, and you're changing us as a people. We see clearly, Lord, this has been your design and not ours. And we want to thank you for that, Lord. It was a great idea. Today, Lord, I thank you for this house, and I bless them. And we take this time of fellowship today, Lord, just to relax and enjoy you and to enjoy each other. Just the simple pleasures in life that are so rich just because we're sharing it together. Thank you for what you've done and what you're going to do in our future, Lord. And we bless you in Jesus' name. Can we give the Lord some praise for what he's done here? Amen. So here's the plan, y'all. For those who are bold enough and brave enough, we're heading to the park. Now last year it seemed rainy and cool, and we said we're going for it, and we got down there and had an awesome day. It never rained on us. Nobody got cold. It was just a great, great day. I'm willing to see if he can do it again. All right? So please feel free to come down to Camp Creek to the Farley Branch Shelter number 2. It's there as you keep going straight, and right there across from where the volleyball court is, the one right past the stage. Okay? So we'll see you guys down there here in just a little bit. Bless you and go in peace.